All right, this is a bit of a weird episode. Just moments ago, 10 minutes to be exact, I received a text message from Taylor saying that she couldn't record because George, her baby boy, just threw up. And there, of course, her and her husband are dealing with all of this. Many parents out there, I'm sure, can relate. I am just imagining it's projectile, it's everywhere. And Taylor was a little bit busy later in the week. So we're just kind of making a quick shift. Taylor will be back next week. We're just going to shift the movies that we saw this week to review next week. So next week, I will review Sing Sing. Taylor saw a sort of viral YouTube movie called Milk and Cereal. I don't know anything about it. That'll be interesting. And then I saw a really weird movie called Am I Racist, which I can't wait to talk about because it's weird. So we're going to talk about all that next week. For this week, I'm going to answer a couple fan questions that we haven't had a chance to get to just for being busy over the past couple of weeks. There are a few of you that I know have written in specifically about kind of the horror movie stuff. We're going to save that for closer to our Halloween episode. Taylor wants to save those, do kind of another Halloween thing. We love Halloween on this show, so we're going to do that. There's a couple fan questions, of course, I won't answer because there's specifically things that I think Taylor should try to have an opportunity to answer or are directed at Taylor. So I'm just going to answer some other random fan questions that have come in, try to get some of those, rattle that off. It's going to be a short episode this week. And yeah, I'm riding solo, so it's just me answering your fan questions. So I hope you like listening to just my voice because that's what you're going to get for the next little bit. One fan question I wanted to bring up, Josh L. wrote back in. We were giving him a hard time for listening to our show on Friday. He says, I actually listened to the show on Friday because that's my day to clean my apartment. I listened to both of you talk about movies while I clean. So I guess, Josh, this week you're going to have to half clean your apartment because it's only me. Also, kudos for cleaning every single week. And you're not the first person to say that. A friend of mine gave me this similar comments that he cleans his house or his apartment, I should say, while listening to our show. So there's something about Taylor and I that screams sanitize. So take that for what it is. Next question comes from someone who I think has written in before. Jasmine, who says, I really am interested to get more thoughts on why you're so concerned about Joker 2 specifically being a musical. From everything that I've heard on this show, you're actually both big fans of musical theater, maybe not so musical movies. Is that really the concern, or that it doesn't fit in with the genre? My quick answer to that is, yeah, I guess you kind of nailed it on the head for both of your points that you're bringing up, Jasmine. One, I don't think musical movies are very good. For the most part, they're kind of misses for me when it comes to understanding what musical theater is and like getting the point. I think musical theater works excellent on stage, but sometimes the translation to film doesn't always work. And then for the Joker, yeah, to me it just doesn't make sense. And I think I'm more concerned about this back and forth nature that seems to be happening with the Joker, where it's like, it's a musical, it's not a musical, don't call it a musical, there's 16 songs in it, I don't want them to sing well. One of the points that I brought up was, when you have a musical and something like La La Land or this one, where they say, and they come out saying, I want the characters to sing like real people, and real people aren't always great singers. To counter that, I bring up, when you go to see a comedy movie, it's not just the actor playing the role who's funny. Human beings can be naturally funny, some of them not can be. You can't use the convention of comedy and say, oh, but we don't want it to be funny though, because some people aren't naturally funny. So we'll make people awkward. There are certain conventions within comedy to hit certain, points, moments. There's things in comedy like, good timing, comedic timing we talk about all the time, that are important, and the comedy is what comes from the action. In musical theater, the singing comes from the action. As opposed to giving a monologue, you sing a song. The song is not in the reality of the world. People aren't seeing each other necessarily singing to each other. it's almost like an out of reality experience. So them being good singers is an aesthetic thing, not in the real world them being like who it's not this person. When you watch a movie like Anchorman, the character that Will Ferrell plays, Ron Burgundy, that human is not funny. But the way the character behaves, the way the actor behaves, the way the circumstances come make it funny to us. He's actually sort of like a nitwit. Like he's not smart, he's stupid, he's sexist, he's ridiculous. And in the world, that's how people see him, as kind of a ridiculous person. We see him as funny. So that's my concern about the musical and going the route of like, oh, they're not going to be good singers. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think from my kind of perspective, I'm hoping and looking at this saying, well, maybe the music just won't be a big part of it. Maybe there's something we're missing here that we're not being explained. But yeah, everything I've heard, and it's only based on what I've heard, I'm not interested. But with that being said, Taylor and I are both probably seeing this and reviewing it. Like we just will. It's something that is worth talking about. I do feel strongly that when you don't like something, like the looks of something, you should go see it. Like I think you have to at that point, just to sort of either justify your opinion or to have your mind changed. And I'm open-minded enough to say if Joker 2 is amazing, I'll give it a good review. This next question comes from Steven, who wants to know, I know you guys don't talk a lot about television, but do you have any television shows that you're specifically watching right now that you're into? I would specifically love to hear if you've watched any of the Star Wars TV shows and what your thoughts on there. So I'll rattle those off quickly and give you my thoughts. The Acolyte Star Wars TV show, terrible. Awful writing, some of the worst character development I've seen. It was boring. It was dull. None of it really made any sense. With sci-fi and fantasy, you sort of walk this line, I feel, between something like really making sense and engaging your audience and just going into absurdity. And this was absurd. Acolyte, terrible show. Definitely a skip it. The Mandalorian, I still really like. I know some of the seasons have been hit and miss with people. I enjoy that show overall. I really, really like the first season. I think it's a very good show. I think Pedro Pascal is really well cast. I think the supporting cast is also really good. Like every single character he meets is interesting. There's a lot of kind of cool world building in The Mandalorian. I also like a show that's set in the immediate aftermath of the Empire falling. I kind of like that. So Mandalorian, it's a see it. Ahsoka, I thought it was terrible. I really, really hated it. I thought it was just so boring was a problem. I like Rosario Dawson. I thought that like she's fantastic, really good, kind of choice. The problem with centering your show 100% around a Jedi who's fully trained, as opposed to someone like Luke who's going through training, or in kind of the new movies where Rey is not really a Jedi. Jedi are boring. They're kind of dull characters because they're just sort of devoid of emotion. It's why in Star Trek, Vulcans are often your side character, because a Vulcan in and of itself is boring because it's just sort of like a perfect, non-emotionally driven, maybe a little bit dry and sarcastic. Again, Leonard Nimoy, Spock, excellent, but it works as like a foil or a folly to Kirk. Like you can't have Spock without Kirk. It just doesn't work. And I feel like in Ahsoka, it was Ahsoka and then nobody else. So yeah, I really feel like that it just didn't work for me as a show, and I don't think centering your show around Jedi makes a lot of sense. And again, it's one of the things that I think the new Star Trek got wrong about Discovery. You centered a character, a human who was raised by Vulcan, who's devoid of emotion, but isn't super logical and is kind of dumb. Like it just didn't work. Ahsoka's an interesting character, but I feel like you teamed Ahsoka up with like a former Jedi who was like a trainee, who I feel like we really needed to have watched the cartoon shows to know what was going on. So yeah, Ahsoka, skip it, not a fan. Andor, loved it. I think it's the best Star Wars show they've made. I really loved the scenes inside the prison, kind of seeing what the prison looked like, an Imperial prison and what happens there. I also really liked the stuff that, can't remember which Skarsgård it is, but one of the Skarsgårds, where he's basically in the Imperial Senate, that as they're seeing the Empire take over, the beginnings and forming of the rebellion. And I thought that was really well done. So Andor, absolutely a see it. Love that as well. Obi-Wan Kenobi, like real hit and miss. I thought that should have just been a movie. I feel like stretching it out to 6 episodes was a bit of a miss. I really liked the last 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought they were really, really good. Ewan McGregor is an excellent choice for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really liked that we got Hayden Christensen back to play kind of still a young-ish Darth Vader, and kind of looking at how that would look. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think it's like a stream it kind of thing. I think it should have just been a movie. Some of those middle episodes feel stretched out. And I think that's all I've seen. Oh, I've seen the Book of Boba Fett. Not a fan. Didn't like it. I thought it was really poor. So that's a skip it. Yeah. So otherwise, so really hit and miss. Some of them I really, really like. Some of them I really don't like. Only one kind of in the middle. That's my those are my Star Wars takes there. Next question. This one also is about TV. No name I see here. Yeah, I don't see a name here. So anyway, this came through the website. Have you? This must have been recent. Have you watched Agatha All Along yet? No, because I think it debuts tonight. I believe, if I remember correctly, this is one of the ones where they're debuting it at a specific time. Like unlike some streaming shows where you can get it, like the day of. I think it's streaming and available as of 9 or something, or maybe 6, or maybe it is up now. But no, I haven't watched it yet. I am planning on watching it. I'm a Marvel TV fan so far. I'm a little concerned about the kind of overacting, cartoonish nature of Catherine Hahn's performance in WandaVision. Like, I think it works because she was a villain. You can be kind of like a cackling witch sort of villain, but as a main character, again, I don't know. Again, we don't know. We're going to probably get more of her backstory. I don't really know anything about it. I've kind of stayed away, especially for Marvel. I really try to stay away from every piece of information you could get, because I'm just like not interested in being spoiled. You've already, like, when it comes to a movie, you've already got my ticket, so I'm not too concerned about that. And then in terms of the TV shows, I'm probably watching it eventually, so I'm not super concerned about that. I don't really have a lot of other TV that I'm kind of diving into right now. I mean, I think the new stuff of Agatha All Along, I'm definitely going to watch. I'm watching Rings of Power. I've watched a couple episodes of the new Walking Dead show that has Rick and Michonne back in. The first 2 episodes were kind of interesting, so I'm kind of back into that world. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see kind of where that goes. Next fan question comes from Carol. And Carol says, I'd be really interested to get your thoughts overall on movie season trends. One of the things I think you guys talked about a few weeks ago was there are certain movies that you really like to watch over certain times. Is that more about the feel of the movie or their release date? For example, right now, I really do feel like we're not getting a lot of new movies in the theater, a lot of horror movies as we lead up to Halloween. What do you think the kind of season trends are in movies? Yeah, I mean, I think things have changed a lot now. But what it used to be, and the universal trends to me have always been September's really, really, really light on new movies. The summer is just so busy. There's almost every weekend there's a kind of a big movie that's being released. September seems to kind of calm down. People are pretty busy. They kind of get back to school and work and all that fun stuff. So I feel like it just kind of drifts away, and then we get horror movies, low budget horror movies, and then a few different kind of Hollywood horror movies that lead you up to October. And then once that's done, I mean, November, you get more blockbusters. Like, you start November, December, really getting the Oscar bait movies. So you get a lot of like heavy dramas and real like huge thematic movies. And then you do get some blockbusters and big movies like, you know, Dune that would come out at Christmas, and even to go back, you know, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, they would all come out sometime in the November, December timeframe. That's another good time to release kind of your big movies. And then in Canada specifically, January, February, we're catching up on all the different Oscar movies. We don't get all of them through November and December, so they often will come to Canada in January, February. So even though in the States there's another big movie lull, where January and February is just sort of like a dumping ground for all of these horrible movies, we are still catching up right until the Oscars on Oscar movies. So we still get some pretty good movies. And then you usually get a one big movie or two in March, and then the summer season kicks off in May. And most of your big movies are from May to August. Most of your Oscar contending movies seem to be kind of November, December, and again in Canada, January, February. And yeah, that's pretty much, at least that's how our show goes. That's pretty much what happens. I haven't been out to the movie theater for a few weeks because there really hasn't been much there. I've been sort of catching up on things I missed in the summer on streaming or finding new things there. But yeah, I haven't been to the movies much. Very sporadically. There's not too much playing. But usually it starts to pick up. You get one or two big releases through the November kind of month. Maybe you get something in October you're interested in, and then you're off to the races from there. One last fan question here before we go away today. This one's from Akil. I know you've written in several times, Akil, so we'll get to your question. This is timing question about the Oscars. Any early Oscar favorites from either of you? I know most of the Oscar movies don't seem to start until December, but are there any specific movies or performances that you've been really inspired by? I mean, one of the things that I'll say is that you get one, maybe two movies a year that open outside of that November, December timeframe I'm talking about and do get recognized at the Oscars. It's rare, but it does happen. So you get a couple movies. One of the movies that I'll talk about next week, Sing Sing, I think there's some Oscar potential there, without a doubt. That's something that I think that we'll come back to. I mean, if I had it my way, movies like Challengers, Turtles All the Way Down, both movies I've seen this year that they're really good. Like, I think they would get nominations, but you never know. Like with genre sort of movies, you don't know. Like, I suppose Turtles All the Way Down is probably just too small. Challengers has enough big names in it; it might get some buzz. I think a movie like Civil War, because of its like political nature, might get like a writing nomination. Not that it doesn't deserve it, but again, it's you kind of have to look at the Oscars as more thematically the voters, what are they interested in, because you do get really good movies that get passed over. Turtles All the Way Down is one of my favorite movies from the year. It was released on streaming only. I think it definitely deserves some writing credits. It's definitely an Oscar worthy movie. I really enjoyed as I mentioned, Challengers, which is another good one, another favorite of the year. I will talk about Sing Sing more next week, but certainly for some acting nominations, I think that would be my pick. Who knows if that's going to happen? I'm trying to remember or quickly look at some of the other good movies I've seen this year. Like there's like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is not going to get nominated, maybe for special effects, but I really enjoyed that movie. Didn't think I would, but I did. Inside Out 2 was good. I think that's going to get probably the nomination for Best Animated Feature. I mean, A Quiet Place, like horror movies just never get recognized. A Quiet Place Day One was another really good movie. I enjoyed that. I don't know how to fix that problem. Like Deadpool Wolverine, one of my favorite movies of the year, it's not going to get nominated. Like you're just not going to see it, which is a shame because I think Hugh Jackman specifically had one of the better performances of Wolverine in this movie. So him being nominated would be really cool, but again, it just doesn't happen. The Academy doesn't really generally honor these types of movies. It's gotten a little bit better over the past couple of years, but it really takes, I think, a spectacular Angela Bassett's performance in Black Panther 2, which was really incredible. She got nominated. Like it takes kind of that level to be noticed. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't really foresee that there. But there you go. There's some fan questions from me. I hope you enjoyed a bit of a short episode. We wanted to put something out, but with the last minute nature of George's throwing up, Taylor and Dan are dealing with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Next week, as I said, we will come back. All new episode. Taylor will be back. We'll go over as much as we can from the movies that were missed this week. And of course, we'll be looking at some new movies, hopefully coming out. I mean, I do want to see Speak No Evil, which is a horror movie that just opened. I know it's also, I just recently discovered it's a remake of a movie that came out 2 years ago. So that's something worth discussing. So maybe I'll check that out as well. But definitely, hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode. And as Taylor says, go see some movies. Thank you for listening to You Had Me at Skip It, a Soul One Arts Inc. podcast. This podcast is produced by Mike Shepard and Austin Spinner Summer. It is a project of Soul One Arts Inc. To learn more about Soul One and all the great work that Soul One is doing in the arts community, especially in film, theater, and other performing arts, visit soul1arts.ca. You can contribute to this podcast by visiting soul1arts.ca and going to the podcast tab. You'll find all the information on You Had Me at Skip It and how you can get your questions read on air each week. Thank you again for listening.